Okay. Call this meeting to order, the meeting of the Finance Committee. We have a number of grant approvals this afternoon, two budget revision requests, and a few pieces of legislation to consider. So unless there's some other reason, we'll just sort of work through them in order as they are here. The first bit of business is approving the minutes of the last meeting of September 20th.
Mr. Mayor, I've reviewed the minutes. They appear to be accurate. I move for their approval.
Yeah, exactly. Be careful what you call me. Yeah. Is there a second?
I was not here, but I think you guys did a darn good job in my absence, so I don't think I can second them.
Very nice. I'll second.
Madam Clerk, I would ask that be added to the minutes, please. For the
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Unpaid vendors.
Sure. You want to get into that? ID
All right.
318.
ID 318-17. When a municipality government appropriates dollars, appropriates the budget, those current dollars are for the expenditures of that current year. When a bill goes unpaid and comes in after the year is closed, essentially what these transactions are, they have to be paid, but there's no authority to pay from current revenues. So that's why it's here, is to pay these bills with the current revenues.
So this is sort of the action item that allows you to basically pay them out of this year, even though they were incurred last year.
Exactly.
Okay. Is there any backstory in any of them, or anything unusual, or are they just sort of things that got caught up in that time frame?
What are all these workforces getting the Cintas uniforms?
Is that what it's for? I mean, maybe it might be for something else.
No, these are part of the annual budget. They're included in the annual operating expenses. Nothing here is out of the ordinary. They're ongoing expenditures. You know, the unfortunate thing is that they have come down. They were submitted to the finance department after the books were closed.
Sure. Who's Oscar Derrick? Who's James Warner? Are these firefighters? Are these restaurant workers? Are these? I'm looking at the Cintas invoice, and it's things for uniforms, small shop towel. Are these things? Are these things that are used in transportation? I just was
That's
curious.
correct. Yeah.
It says Park and Rec, but yeah.
Park and Rec.
Yeah. So they're uniform for folks who work in Park and Rec.
A lot of these are
Right.
part of the union contracts.
Yeah.
Okay, I just curious.
So do you need a motion to approve or recommend? I mean,
I recommend
Okay.
approving them.
What are we approving?
Paying the last year's bills out of this year's money. I
Okay.
move approval.
All right, so it's money we owe. I thought maybe it was money.
Oh, no,
Silly
no.
me, I thought it was money maybe that was owed to us.
No.
I should have known.
No, I wish.
Yeah, okay.
Is that a second?
But if you didn't move, I will, and if you did move, I'll
did.
second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll work through the GAs here. Start with GA 1218, the 2017 Emergency Management Performance Grant Program. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Deputy Fire Chief Kevin Simmons and Dave Mandel, Deputy Director of the Office of Emergency Management. Mr. Chair, this is the very last time you have to deal with me and my screwy grants. So I'm back again for this yearly ritual, explaining my grants for your approval. We're looking at the 2017 Emergency Management Performance Grant. That's to ensure that we have ongoing and robust emergency management and EOC. This grant has a match required with it. However, the city does not put money to it. The match is my salary. my salary and a couple of my colleagues' salary. So how we actually appropriate this money is we have $5,000 in overtime, $15,000 in supplies, training and education, $10,000. And with that $10,000, it's not only for the Office of Emergency Management. However, we actually train other folks in other departments. So other folks they benefit from this $10,000. Contract services, and then we have $37,074 for EOC upgrades, new technology. We want to upgrade our conference call systems just for the EOC, maintenance contracts, etc.
Okay, thank you. And is this number sort of varied over from last year, or are we?
You know,
is it
this
pretty standard?
number actually stays pretty steady. We've always gotten around this, sometimes a little bit higher, but not phenomenally higher, and then sometimes lower. But it kind of stays the same, and this is important because it establishes our operating funds for the year, as our budget is $7,500 for operating from the city.
Do you want to talk about the other Homeland Security grants as a package, and we can
Sure. Unless
see
you
what
have a
questions?
question about
Is
this
there any
one?
questions
Well,
specifically?
no, actually though,
Sure.
and I think that is a good idea, because I'm gonna vote yes for all of them, but what's hard to really track when you see these things in little dollops, like one of the things I focused on was training. Each one of them has some money allocated for training, and I don't have a good sense of what the total training budget is. And that's merely a matter of curiosity. I'm not questioning whether it's right or not, but let's say the total training budget adds up to $125,000, which I can't tell by looking at these one at a time. Then I would say, well, that's actually a goodly amount of training. I wonder what all we're doing in terms of training. So I think really this is more a question of the finance department. Is there some way and I don't know that we even see it in the pro forma. We do?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess what we need to do when we're looking at these is crosswalk them to the pro forma, which I usually have with me, but I left it home.
It's not in your back pocket?
Yeah, right.
Just for clarification, any prior year grant that has been appropriated and the department has believed that we're going to receive in that during the upcoming fiscal year is part of the pro forma, and then so you'll have a total budget, and then you'll see the negatives underneath of it, which are the grants. So the total amount is appropriated, and subtract the grants, so that gives you the amount that will be part of the general fund, and then the amount of the grants will be transferred to the different grant
Right.
accounts.
So
So
there's-
it should roll up to the
Right.
total.
So there's two things going on here. One is, I think we should pay attention to it, but two, I think we've pretty much established the principle that we trust the department directors to manage their own affairs in the details. So, to me, I don't have a problem approving these across the board because it's up to the director and the staff to figure out what to do with the money, and I've not seen any evidence that it has been misused or misallocated.
Thank you. Alderman Budge?
Yeah, so the finance director's comments generate a question.
Always does.
We have a number of grants such as these that are recurring annual grants. And I thought that most of the recurring grants were already baked into the budget.
Correct. That's what I
And
tried to say, right?
So if these are baked into the budget, I thought we didn't need to do grant approvals on things that were already baked into the budget.
The reason why we put them into the grants is because the dollars can change
Okay.
from year to year, and we just want to make sure that the appropriating authority
Got
goes
it.
with it.
Thank you.
Can I respond to that also? Actually, if we'd gone through these one by one, Director Simmons was telling me about the need to purchase a vehicle that has towing capacity, given the experience in Ellicott City. So I think there are things we learn which to me are like positives oh gee, I never thought of that kind of thing. And so I think that is one of the benefits of going through these. I do review them ahead of time, and as Kevin knows, if I see something, boom, I'm right there with a question. But I think there is a reason for doing it, even if we know we're going to approve it all. Because some interesting things come up that we ought to know about. But that's just my view.
Okay.
So we're moving
Chief,
approval of GA 12, 13, 14, and 15.
I'll second that.
Sure. I mean, is there anything else you want to say about any of the other three, the state?
If you approve them all, I just want to say thank you. Is that what you just did, right?
Well, the Homeland,
Well done.
the Homeland Security grants are also, no match is required, as I recall. And
No, the one that I just mentioned was the only match, and again,
Yeah.
the city doesn't put out any hard money, it's my salary. And the rest of them are no match required.
So moved and seconded to recommend approval GA 12, 13, 14, 15. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Easy
you.
enough. Thank you. The next grant approval is GA 1618, the 2017 Play 60 grant.
I don't think we have anybody here to speak to that.
Okay?
So that means it's Nikki.
Yeah, please.
All right, good afternoon, Nikki Pletzer, Finance Department. GA 1618 is the 2017 Play 60 grant that's awarded from the Baltimore Ravens Foundation. This is a grant that Rec and Parks receives annually. It is used to support the Annapolis Mighty Milers program. Typically, there's about 300 plus participants between grades 3 through 5. It's a 6-week running program. It teaches the kids, does strength training, teaches them how to run, how to pace themselves, and then they end up with a mile race, and they get T-shirts, finish line medals, and then they get like a snack and a little party at the end. It's a good positive event for the Rec and Parks Division.
Thank you. Any questions or comments or
Move approval.
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Easy enough. GA 1718, the Bywater Park Development Project.
Is it required that we take a name for the Ravens?
Well, this one's more interesting.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, David Gerald, Director of Public Works. So GA 1718 is actually tied together with GT 418, which is under budget revision requests. We're getting $55,000 of open space money from DNR, and the city's match is 1/3, so $18,335. And that money is going to be used to buy playground equipment for the new park. And even though one says Bywater Park and the other says Kingsport Park, it's actually the same park.
Right.
So, so that's the grant and the city match. The city match is coming from some funds that we have left over from the fire station paving contract that we did a couple of years ago. So that money is free and clear and available, and so that will help improve that park considerably.
So it's active dollars that allow us to move forward fast, right? To be able to get this in motion, right? Good.
Right.
And this is something that Sheila has been
Absolutely.
working on forever.
Yes.
Yep.
So it'll make her and her constituents happy.
Yes.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments about this?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And GA 1818, Project Open Space. Let's see what we have here.
You have something that won't open.
Program Open Space.
Come
Okay, Nikki Pletzer, Finance Department. This is another Department of Natural Resources Program Open Space grant that was awarded to the city, yes. It's for the renovation of the 12 tennis courts located at Truxton Park. It will pay for the demolition of the existing 12 courts, which includes the removal of at least 5 layers of asphalt, fence demolition and replacement, court construction and color coding, striping, installation of new nets, and repairing existing pathways.
Okay, sure. Alderman Arnett?
So I have 2 words, pickleball. Have we resolved the conflict between the pickleball players' need for space with this? No.
I can tell you this, and I do not know all the details. I know that the city manager's office and the park and rec director have been talking to them in great detail.
Yeah, those pickleballers come in with a big paddle.
Yes, but I think the tennis racket's bigger. But all kidding aside, I would defer to Tom in order to.
So we want to do this, but I've been watching an ongoing dialogue, and my sense is that while pickleballers are being relatively courteous, they're not particularly happy, and I think they're trying to find some other spaces for pickleball courts.
I think, that said, I don't think any party is going to be 100% happy. Judging from the conversations, the administration is trying to address all the issues.
I think Tom's doing a great job.
Yeah, not everybody's going to be
But
happy at the end of the day.
It's a juggling act.
Right.
Yeah. So obviously, I think this is already underway, isn't it? Or is it, they've got the contractor for it?
If I could add, this project was included in the FY 2018 capital improvement plan, and the match for the grant is also included in the CIP
right.
for FY 18. So this has been long in the works.
Right. So I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This job is easy.
And the final grant approval is GA 1918, body armor replacement. Welcome.
Part-time grant writer at the police department, and this grant funding is from the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention. Their original source is the Bureau of Justice Assistance, so it's coming down from the Department of Justice to the state. We asked for funding for 17 vests, and in fact got approved for 11 vests. And there's a certificate match, which we're fully prepared to bear because we have to have vests.
Is your mic on?
And there's a green light.
Bright green?
And
Yeah.
everybody gets to be
Okay. Well,
So it's probably something we would have been spending money on anyway in this current budget, and had budgeted. This helps pay for half of it.
Absolutely. However, we're never allowed to supplant or otherwise reprogram what we would have budgeted for and replace it. So
Sure.
we made the case that our budget is so tight and our needs are so great, please help us with vests. And I will say they were generous this year. The last time we applied was in FY 13, and they gave us enough money for 2 vests.
yeah, gee.
It's a much better outcome.
Good.
So if we don't get this money, but we have a need for the vests, what do we do?
It's one of the first things that gets budgeted in the equipment operating budget, because there's not only a general order, common sense, safety, practicality would dictate replacement vests typically at every 5-year cycle, unless wear and tear accelerates that need. So we're actually due to replace 17 vests in FY 18 and about 29 in FY 19. So this goes a long way to help defray using the budget.
Ah,
Ha!
ah.
I got all day, I can start all
We-
over. No, I'm kidding.
we-
Thank you, and I
we got you.
apologize. I just saw a green light.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this grant approval?
I move approval. I'm certainly not going to vote against replacing body armor for our police officers.
I think we need it for older persons also.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, GTs, GT 318, transfer from Homeownership Assistance Trust Fund to CDBG Property Rehabilitation Project. Let's see here.
Teresa?
Pete Gutwell, Planning Director. Can I get on that body armor deal?
Right.
Exactly. You may need it more than us,
Yeah,
frankly.
But you need it down back here.
I don't know if I could add much more to, this is a transfer of $40,000 from the Homeowners Assistance Trust Fund to the City Rehabilitation Fund done by Anne Arundel County. There's 3 projects that they are committed to in this fiscal year, and it was not fully funded. They got 143 and some change in the budget. They needed 180, so Teresa felt like that money could be used here to get some low-income residential units online. So,
Okay, Alder Barnett.
Recommend approval to the council.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Easy enough, thank you. And then we have the GT that follows on what David Jarrell was talking about before. It's actually move the money from the match from the fire station parking project paving project that's been closed out to the Kingsport Park.
Move we recommend approval to the council.
Yeah, I don't see any reason not to. I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. And then
Can we, since Mr. Jerichow is here, can we move out of order so that he doesn't have to go through any more of this?
Absolutely, absolutely. So feel free to join us at the table here, and we could talk about 4617. Welcome.
I'm here to talk about the proposed ordinance and resolution to change the pricing on the one-day liquor license for 501c3 entities that are putting on a live acting performance in a venue of less than 200 seats. I know that's been referred to the committee by the City Council. I did a couple of things. I've given you a couple of items about economic studies. I've got about 12 or 15 economic studies I've looked at. I thought these two were the excerpts and simplest of the two to look at. The one is from the Maryland Arts Council from 2015, which reflects the overall impact, economic impact of spending in the arts on things like theater performances and how that increases the value of the economy in various sectors of the state. The one that we fall into is the central sector, and they talk about that, and the approximate, I think they estimate about 3,000 jobs, 2,500 jobs, and about $3.5 million. Now, it does include Baltimore, but it also covers Anne Arundel County. The other is a national study that supports the overall economic impact, and basically, if you read the last table on the last, the summary of the last page, they conclude that for live theater performances, that patrons spend about $28.26 per person per event in the local economy. So the overall statistics, the analysis, and other studies we have indicate that the summary is about $1, for every $1 spent in a live theater performance, there's about $7 returned to the local economy. And that's in the form of the things that the theater itself spends on, like buying supplies and paints and salaries, and then what the patrons spend. And so the equation is good for that regard. In terms of the economic impact on the finances of the city of Annapolis, I did an analysis of the 4 theaters that would qualify under this law. That is Annapolis Shakespeare, Annapolis Summer Garden Theater, Colonial Players, and Compass Rose. And I wasn't sure exactly how many seats they had, but I looked and estimated from what I could find. And if you look at the number of performance days that they propose to have by clicking at their current seasons being proposed for 2017-2018, it turns out to be somewhere in the range of about 300 days of performances. Now, they currently don't buy the liquor licenses for one day because they're $75 a day. And if they only get 50 people at a performance and 5 people buy, it's too risky. They all work on a tight budget, they're all charitable entities, and so they don't buy them now, so there's no negative impact on the city finances. But if they were buying, then at the $75 a day and the number of performance days, it would only equate to about $2,000 of income to the city of Annapolis. So the proposal that goes to a license that basically is $100 a year doesn't really have any negative impact on the city finances in terms of what you're considering.
Thank you. That's great. Sure, Alderman Arnett.
So, I understand that analysis. What I would wish had happened is we'd have gotten that same analysis in the fiscal impact note. Because, I mean, my question was, what is the potential income foregone? And I think Ron just answered that, but the fiscal impact note just regurgitates what the legislation is. So I think the bottom line is it may be a wash, it may be a loss of $2,000, which I think, given the overall quality of life benefits of this, but you know, this age-old argument about just because it's good for business doesn't mean it's good for city coffers. People lose sight of that. So I plan to move that we recommend approval of this to the council, but it is the case that potentially we're going to lose a few bucks.
Well, but I think that the reality is, I mean, I'd be curious when the last time any of these 4 theater groups actually pulled a one-day permit and paid for it. Like, it's probably,
I agree.
so we're not losing, you're losing hypothetical money that none of them are coming forward to pay. It doesn't appear. But.
Yeah, a couple of, an observation and a question. Since these theater groups are presently nonprofits, they're currently eligible for the one-day liquor license, which they're not buying. So we're not losing any money here.
That's right.
So, yeah.
It's all in potential.
This is enabling legislation in effect. But so my question for Mr. Jerichow is there a cap, either in state legislation or elsewhere, on the number of one-day liquor license events any given organization can have?
No, there's nothing under the state law, and as I explained at the city council meeting when I testified, the state law is structured in such a way, as you're probably familiar with the alcoholic beverage provisions of the code, that there are certain sections which apply statewide, and there are then the sections they have for each jurisdiction enabling them to do certain things. The one-day liquor license law comes under the state portion that applies uniformly across the state, and there is no limitation on how many one-day liquor licenses any entity can obtain in any one year. So the way it's structured is, and the way you have to maintain, is you can get a one-day license that's good for 7 days, which means that each of these organizations which only put on theater performances each weekend will have to buy a series of one-day liquor licenses. And the way the city and I discussed having these things structured is they would pay $5 for each license until they capped out at $100, and then they wouldn't have to pay any longer. Under the state code, although you don't have the right to change the state provision of one-day liquor licenses and the definition of club which can qualify for a liquor license, you are authorized under state law to set the prices for all the liquor licenses. And that's why this legislation is aimed at your authority, the city of Annapolis, to set the license price if somebody qualifies for the special pricing as both being a club as defined by state law, but they're a 501c3 charitable entity putting on a performance of live acting in a venue of no more than 200 seats. And this was modeled on the Montgomery County law, which has those parameters within it. It's to really aid those small theaters. and not to permit movie theaters to do this kind of thing or to put on a big rock concert or anything like that under the guise of this law. So that's really what the intent is.
So,
Thank you.
help me out with a couple of things. One is, how is a one-day liquor license good for 7 days? That doesn't sound like a one-day license.
You pay $75 a day, but you can have one application and it would be good for 7
Got
days
it.
under state law.
Okay. So, under this legislation, if a theater were operating 365 days a year, they could have, for $100, a liquor license for 365 days.
Yes, they could, and they could do that under current law anyway, at $75 a day.
Okay.
Good. Any other questions or comments on this? Do we have a motion?
I move we recommend approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
you.
Thanks for taking the time. Okay, 04417, exempt service of the Economic Development Manager. This is the mayor's legislation. It's been referred to rules as
What?
well as here.
Yeah.
Any
why-
thoughts or
Well,
comments?
why are we doing this?
Well,
Does that put the economic development director out of civil service and into?
it puts it in
at
as
will?
civil, so right now it's contractual, so this actually puts it as a city, as a city employee, makes it a city employee.
So adding it to the roles of positions instead of being a contractual
It's
position.
something that we all agreed to when we first created the position. It started off as contractual, and now we're rolling it in as a civil service position.
Okay. And what do you have to say about changing in the Office of Law from Arabic 1 and 2 to Roman numeral 1 and 2?
I doubt. That's for Tricia.
I mean, I don't see any problem with this. It works for me. I assume the incumbent is comfortable with this?
Yes.
Is there, I mean, this, instead of being a contract, this really commits the city to funding this position, am I not? Yeah. I have to say that these Friday morning meetings that we're having with all of the different business associations around town, I found to be quite productive and fun to attend. So I think, at least in that regard, we're getting bang for the buck out of this position. How is it working in terms of this liaison with the county level economic development? Are we seeing?
I think it's working great. She spends about 2 days up there. Sometimes it's different days, but she tries to keep it the same days every week. But sometimes, work plan just doesn't dictate that. So I think it's been very successful. We've been able to utilize a lot of different resources at the county level. And when she's up there at the county, in the county offices, she's actually advocating on behalf of the Annapolis area. So
That was the hope.
yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments about this?
No
Alderman
questions
Bale?
from me.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Move we recommend favorably to the council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm not too sure about those Roman numerals, but
And the final bit of business, I guess, is the R31, the fee schedule change related to 04617, the alcohol beverage licenses, theaters that we just recommended, so
move approval, or recommend approval.
is there a
Move that
second?
we recommend approval.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Easy enough. So Bruce, Finance Department updates.
Let's see here. Actually, we're gearing up to do the sensitivity analysis programs for the upcoming union negotiations. So we're putting in all the employees and the current, much like I did last year, all the different benefits for each employee, salary, so that when it comes time to negotiations, we can drill down by department, we can drill down by union. So it's a helpful analytical tool to prepare the budget. Also, getting ready for fiscal year 19 budget process, rolling all that information from the sensitivity, payroll sensitivity analysis into the budget itself. So that's going to take a little bit of time and effort. The other thing that we're doing is the auditors will be out doing field work next week for 2 weeks. Again, I don't see anything at this moment to be concerned over. And then third, the Financial Advisory Commission has asked that we prepare a recommendation, for best practices relative to budgetary control and oversight, so that when budgets are overspent, there's ramification, if you will, rather. So that's being drafted. Bob Burton and Ross Deardorff are the subcommittee on that charge, and that's basically the update.
So, several questions, but now I've lost track. What was the first thing you said?
The budget sensitivity analysis.
Oh, yeah, for the union.
Right.
Aren't we supposed to be starting now on the union negotiations?
We are, but the reality is that, with the elections, both sides are reluctant to get in too much detail, only because that can change, from their perspective and the city's perspective.
Are we going to be hiring Steve Silvestri to help us again?
Correct.
That's excellent. Are we, my opponent is talking about how the city doesn't have a 5-year budget plan. How does that, what would that be, and how does that differ from our 5-year projections?
Well, I would argue that we do have a 5-year budget plan. We have a 5-year pro forma. We go through the 5-year pro forma. We go through the growth assumptions. We have a 5-year capital plan. So argumentatively, I think we do have a 5-year plan. I think to make it all come together, I think it would be worth discussion, having a strategic planning process behind that, linking the 5-year capital with the 5-year budget analysis, and then match those up with city council objectives, long-term objectives, so that you currently have a document, i.e. the budget, running independently of the capital program, and those two documents are running independently of a long-term, vision. I think the program budgeting went 8-step. And a part of that, we talked about identifying priorities, program priorities. But again, we need to pull that all together. But to your primary question, I would argue that we do have 5 years. It might not be managed as well as it could be managed.
Keep up the good work. You already drove one of us out.
No, wait a minute.
Put it this way: compared to what we had a long time ago, it's come. Think about the capital program. We didn't. When you were first here, you shepherd that process through. We have a very detailed 5-year capital program. The budget process. Think about when you first were here, and what you've done to shepherd that through. So there's been a lot of work. I don't want to discount that, but there's always ways to improve. I guess, yes?
Yeah. If I may, in effect, on my way out the door, suggest that we have a 5-year capital program that the council has at least looked at and voted on. We don't have a 5-year, we have a 5-year projection on the operating budget,
Right.
but it's not at the level where the council has bought into it. And as you mentioned, the CIP and the budget projections are not integrated together. And I would offer the suggestion that that might be something that the Finance Committee and the Office of Finance and the Council could work on during the off months when it's not working on the immediate, this year's operating budget.
Right.
As we all sit around wondering what to do. Or you all.
So,
We're going to hire you as a...
yeah. But is doing a 5-year programmatic budget a step in the right direction? Well, I don't think we really used the programmatic budget. And I don't really think it was very well structured anyway. I think it was kind of symbolic more than functional.
There are a lot of best practices, and we've gone ways to incorporate some of those best practices. But one of the overreaching umbrella concepts is a strategic plan, and that's one step that I think the city could benefit because I do believe we have the foundations to move in that direction, and it's that strategic plan that provides the long-term vision relative to and short-term goals, the goals and the vision as to where we want to go, and then you shift gear, much like the capital program. That changes year to year to year to year. Things roll on, things roll off. So you have to update it on a regular basis, but that creates the discipline maybe that we're lacking at the moment.
So in a strategic plan, would we do things like set forth core values and core services?
That's definitely one of the things that could be discussed. I shouldn't do this, but I will. My older brother, 100%, as part of the planning process, the budget process, they have weekend retreats that they go through a strategic plan, which again helps mold the current budget and future budgets.
I would just offer the thought, since maybe our last meeting, unless we have business at the next one, that would make some sense. You're going to have potentially a lot of new faces, from a certain amount to a lot, potentially, depending how all these elections and potentially a new administration. So if I was in your shoes, I would try and say, yeah, we should do this. We've always meant to do these strategic retreats and just do it. And half the people won't know, have a sense of how it's been in the past. And it's a better model. It's just how do we get from where we've always done it to that. So I would encourage you and Tom to have, on the first meeting, be like, here's for the people who are going to be on the finance committee and the other members, here's what we want to do in the first quarter of the next year to get you all up to speed and everyone have confidence in the process, and have it be whatever you think is best. But I wouldn't give them a choice. I would just say this is how we're doing this to sort of educate you all on the budget process and all these things, and to get to a place where you can have strategic priorities and do all that and to take a shot at it.
But a first step would be to budget for it. You'd need a place. You would presumably need people that would facilitate that process. For almost all of us, it'll be a brand new exercise, and certainly half of us, it'll be totally new, relevant to the city, and maybe 3/4 of us, depending upon how Fred and I elections come out. I would think that that might be something you work with the city manager to tuck that notion in.
Right. I'll do
I'm
that.
thinking Puerto Rico,
Yeah, right.
a lot of space available there.
Help with the recovery.
Any other comments or?
No questions or comments from me.
Thank you, Bruce. Anything else for the good of the order?
Mr. Chair.
I assume we kept the charter amendment and.
Yeah, I mean, we're theoretically having another meeting before we would get to the final meeting where that would be worked on, so we
That
can
would be good.
cross that bridge when we get to it, so.
Mr. Chairman, is this our last meeting?
I don't think so.
No.
No, one more?
Because there's a council meeting on Monday, and then there'll be one following council meeting.
Yeah,
There could be
okay.
items we have to touch before that, so. we will,
Okay.
Okay.
motion
Thank
to
you,
adjourn?
Mr. Chair. If it please the chair, I would move that we adjourn. Matter of fact, even if it doesn't,
All in
Second.
favor?
please the
Aye.
chair.
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.